Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Call Haloyim La Allahayanawa Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai Bahashem Recha HaKodash. Double honors to our elders and apostles of Great Millstone who do teach and rule well, and through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai taught us this 100% truth. Peace, love, and salutations to the house of David, the hopeful elect. You Akim out there pushing his word in truth and sincerity. To those of you likened unto the speckled bird, scattered to four corners, and speaking in different tongues, unto you we say Shalom. This is the brother Gabar Call coming back at you through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai to bring forth this lesson. Adawan Radazah, it be edifying. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 10, starting at verse 2. The wicked in his pride doth persecute the poor. Let him be taken in the devices that they have imagined. For the wicked boasteth of his heart's desire, and blesseth the covetous, whom the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai abhorreth. The wicked, through the pride of his countenance, will not seek after Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai is not in all his thoughts. His ways are always grievous. Thy judgments are far above out of his sight. As for all his enemies, he puffeth at them. He hath said in his heart, I shall not be moved, for I shall never be in adversity. His mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity. He sitteth in the lurking places of the villages. In the secret places doth he murder the innocent. His eyes are privily set against the poor. All right. And I want to, basically, I started off those precepts, all right, because this lesson is going to touch on how Esau and the technology that he has is being used to spy, to basically try to seek out the men of the Lord, okay? And through the Spirit, they're using it under the guise, as you see here in 2019. This is just a general article of spying on the Israelites. All right, but they also have other records of so-called black identity extremists, which we know, all right, to be us, Adawan Radazah. We be those prophets, those elect men, all right, but nonetheless, all right, us striving and putting on as the elect, being those hopeful men, all right, we know that Esau is using all of that data, all of the technological advances that he has to be able to ultimately keep his eyes set on the poor. Who is the poor? That is us, all right, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, who are the biblical Hebrew Israelites, not only according to, of course, biblical prophecy, but also according to secular history. All right. Now, this is just one of many articles that I'm going to pull out, and we're just going to dissect them through the Spirit. All right. And just look into how Esau, really is using his technology to come after the men of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, which, of course, we know is all for naught. Okay. This is a 2019 article. The FBI spends a lot of time spying on so-called black Americans. The FBI released a new trove of documents relating to a surveillance of black activists. They're mostly redacted. And of course, they're mostly redacted, all right, because, when they are placed under the command to release so-called classified documents, they keep most of them redacted. There's various reasons. One, of course, to hide the truth. Two, they use the guise or the premise, if you will, of not exposing their quote sources that they have. All right, Esau has a tendency, all right, of basically saying they have sources that told them this and they have sources that told them that, when really they only have one Judas out of a group of men, if you will. Okay. So that kind of explains why they're mostly redacted, and also just in a general sense as well. All right, understanding that the children of Esau will try to, basically try to undo the injustices that they have done, by speaking on our behalf, by agreeing with so-called Black Lives Matter in the movement, and basically trying to appease the afflicted, if you will. All right. So just a few points real quick. The FBI has come under scrutiny, intense scrutiny, after a 2017 leak exposed that its counterterrorism division had invented a new unfounded domestic terrorism category it called Black Identity Extremism. All right, and I'm just going to open this up and let's see if they still have the article. Yeah, beautiful. All right, this is the original article. The fear of a black homeland, the strange tale of the FBI's fictional Black Identity Extremism movement. All right, and the fear of a so-called black homeland is really just the fear of the nation of Israel rising up. Okay, and that's why it says a strange tale of Black identity extremism, because that is ultimately the narrative or the guise or premise or pretext that Esau used to use this specific technology, artificial intelligence, IoT, Internet of Things, comp security, all of these different measures that tie in with the computer networks that he has. He used this to basically find a means to spy or keep watch over the men of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, which we know to be of naught, all right, because the elect, which were predestinated since before the foundations of the world, are sealed, will be delivered, and the kingdom of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai will be ushered in. Prophecy, all right, will not halt or will not be interfered with by Esau's ridiculous form of so-called policing or a police state or his technology. All right. So the threat within: hours after police officer Darren Wilson shot and killed 18-year-old Michael Brown, Ali Davis stood with a few dozen people on the same street. They were talking about protests, Black Malcolm X t-shirts. Hold on, I just want to get the point real quick. Okay, here we go. So within days, all right, the pretext again, or the precursor being Black Lives Matter. Within days, the gesture became the symbol of a movement for police accountability and racial justice the nation had not seen since the civil rights era. And the refrain protesters began chanting that night, "Hands up, don't shoot," would soon be replaced by one that will echo across the country for years to come: Black Lives Matter. Okay, so this is just going into how basically with the creation of so-called Black Lives Matter, the FBI was basically using resources even as far back of this initial shooting that happened in 2014 as a pretext to basically, quote, fight Black identity extremism. All right, which basically is another way of saying if you so-called Blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans don't shut up and take these curses cheerfully, ultimately, because that's what they are curses, given unto Esau, Edom to execute. All right. So with that pride and him not having no mercy on us, he's basically in the spirit of, if you just don't shut up and take what happens, all right, and just don't keep it pushing, then you are a black identity extremist. All right. And again, this started with so-called peaceful protest. All right. Which we know through the spirit are null and void, because the real protest is hitting the highways and hedges. All right. Prophesying. OK. Continuing further in the main article, all right, since then, legislators have pressured the Bureau's leadership to be more transparent about its investigation of so-called black activists, and a number of civil rights groups have filed public records requests to try to better understand who exactly the FBI is investigating under that designation. Although the Bureau has released hundreds of pages of documents, it continues to shield the vast majority of these records from public scrutiny, right? Because when you see those records of ordinary Israelites that just live lives and have dealt with oppression and, have been incarcerated, but are now just living their lives peacefully on paper, all right? Because, of course, they can't show the videos of us prophesying on paper. Okay, so when you see these things, especially appeasing to Esau, them wanting to appease to the Black Lives Matter movement, even though they are inherently racist and the devil that the Bible speaks of, that causes for that public scrutiny to intensify. Hence why these legislators have pressured the leadership to be more transparent, which we know they are not. Okay. So continuing further, all right, the sheer volume of documents those surveillance efforts have produced is troublesome. The latest batch of FBI documents obtained by the American Civil Liberties Union and the racial justice group Media Justice reveals that between 2015 and 2018, the FBI dedicated considerable time and resources to opening a series of assessments into the activities of individuals and groups it mostly labeled black separatist extremists. And who are that? That are you so-called black, Latino, and Native American men that are Israelites and out here prophesying. Okay, because that's what they have labeled us. They have labeled us black identity and black separatist extremists. Okay, this designation was eventually folded into the category of black identity extremism earlier this year, following an onslaught of criticism from elected officials, civil liberties advocates, and even some law enforcement groups. The FBI claimed that it had abandoned the black identity extremism label, substituting it for racially motivated violent extremism. All right. And even with that being said, I have an article real quick. All right. Just to show you that this is the devil that the Bible speaks of. FBI misled Congress. Black activists still under investigation by new and old extremist designations. All right. So that's what this devil does. All right. When there's a little bit of pressure from his counterparts, he basically says, OK, well, we're going to substitute it and we're going to, open up the range of who we are looking at. And we're going to look at more racially motivated violent extremism amongst other so-called races or groups. But in reality, all right, it is to keep his eyes privily set against the poor. All right, us Israelites. OK, continuing further, just real quick. Although the FBI has frequently changed its labels and terminology, the surveillance of black Americans has continued. Of course they have. As The Intercept has reported, following the killing of Michael Brown by a police officer in Ferguson, the FBI began spying on Ferguson activists and tracking their movements across states, warning local law enforcement partners that Islamic State group supporters were urging protesters to join their ranks. So you see how this devil is? So basically, he was using the technology that he had and trying to say that we were somehow tied in with ISIS in the Middle East. Okay, and basically stating that, if an Arab person went on Black Lives Matter forum, that basically we were being urged to join their ranks. Okay, so the FBI also drafted a mysterious race paper, the contents of which remain secret, even though the Bureau has disowned it. And as the Young Turks reported, the Bureau has established a program dubbed Iron Fist, targeting so-called black identity extremists with undercover agents. All right. And the beautiful thing about that, all right, is the recent video that our elders put out not too long ago about those that have crept in unaware. Okay, so even though you have examples behind the scenes of certain situations that have went down, amongst camps and leadership and certain brethren and bug outs and fallouts and even agents. All right. Again, all of this is going to come to naught. Okay. Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai is going to expose you agents out there, you provocateurs, and you are going to experience a horrible, horrible death. Okay. And Adawan Ratazah. All right, we be of those hunters that can partake in the judgment, in the execution of that judgment. All right, but nonetheless, all right, again, you see how, the main point being, as we saw under the article of Black Identity Extremism, basically Esau fearing the nation of Israel awakening, all right, and ultimately not being in subjection to him, which we know through the spirit and the power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, the scriptures that we have been given, the holy word, all right, that the Lord would make him bear, all right, and take away the power that he was given for a brief season. And that's what has happened specifically over the past 10 years or so. Okay, and not only that, with the shooting in Ferguson, they were tracking you so-called Blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans movements and tying that to a so-called terrorist group, all right, which we know through extensive research, all right, that this Islamic State terrorist group was funded by not only the U.S., but specifically the FJs, or who the world knows to be Israelis. All right, and those rats over there. Okay, so again, you see the measures that this devil will take. All right, there was protests, there was looting going on, again, but not to the measure of what this devil has done. Okay, and not only did they track, these, brothers and sisters movements. All right, but they also tied them to a terrorist organization halfway across the world, ultimately just to continue to push their narrative. Okay, real quick, just a few more. We are troubled about the fact that so much information is not being made available to the public. We just know that the government is likely redacting information that should be disclosed to the public. It frequently does, right? And that's because it's really going to show the extent to which Esau is keeping his eyes privily set against us. Okay, and then just the last point real quick, again, the baseless assessments. Let me see, real quick. Okay, here, yeah. Okay, so I have to start it real quick. As a new report by the Civil Liberties Group Defending Rights and Dissent, they basically go into the First Amendment. Even though the standards for opening an assessment are extraordinarily low, the FBI is allowed to use extremely intrusive investigative techniques in performing them, including physical surveillance, use of informants, and pretextual interviews. Okay, so again, that's the extent, watching where you live. Okay, watching us at camp, those bystanders. All right, using CCTV, because as we all know, all right, according to Esau's, purported leaks and classified information that was leaked to the public, we know that his surveillance, his intelligence agencies have access to all measures of surveillance. So including those CCTV cameras that are at traffic lights, all right, your computer at home, even these phones that we utilize, they're able to turn your microphone on even when the phone is off. The same thing with your camera. Okay, we know all this, all right, but understanding that no man can receive anything lest it come from heaven. All right, and Esau, according to the book of Job as well, all right, he has a bound that he cannot pass. All right, a boundary. Okay, continuing further, during pretextual interviews, FBI agents are not required to disclose their status as federal officials and can lie about the purpose of the interview in order to elicit incriminating statements. Agents can open an assessment without a supervisor's approval for a period of 30 days, after which a supervisor must sign off on, and then after 90 days, an assessment must be authorized. But many of the new documents obtained suggested that the FBI repeatedly reauthorized assessments beyond their initial duration periods. And again, because they are redacted heavily, we don't know to what extent. All right, but we know that it didn't need supervisor's approval for a period of 30 days. And then we find out that these time periods were extended. And that's the devil. All right, they make rules for the sake of you regular six-pack Joe Edomites to follow. All right, but when you're joined to the system and directly involved in that workforce, all right, you don't have to abide by those laws. Okay. Even further, they go into how these assessments and how these assessments basically showed that they were also working with organizations outside of the FBI and maintaining electronic communications and collaboration with other law enforcement agencies as well. All right. And basically, there was law enforcement partners were asked to contribute to collecting better intelligence on possible black separatist extremists. OK, so you have not only the FBI, but then you have the FBI working with these liaisons of the countless thousands and thousands of police departments and districts all throughout the country, keeping an eye on us Israelites. Okay. The documents also refer to the FBI's work with Joint Terrorism Task Force, which bring together agents, that's the spirit, which bring together agents with officers from hundreds of state, local, and federal law enforcement agencies. All right. And again, this is just a small scale. When Esau says 100, it's probably 10,000. Okay, when Esau says 10,000, it's probably 100,000. Okay, continuing further, they just ask a few points. What is it telling law enforcement officers to do? Most of these assessments just say be very afraid of this new threat, and that's Esau. Okay, because Esau is losing his power. All right, Esau is losing everything, again, that he was given only for a season. All right, and again, being the devil that he is, they don't give any practical advice for how to identify that threat, because there is no threat. Okay, the threat is Esau losing his power. Okay, or how to distinguish that threat from a legitimate protest or nonviolent civil disobedient or other First Amendment protected activity that might promote some similar ideas but isn't violence. All right, so they're showing you, all right, that they have went through all of these articles, and Esau is just telling them, oh, be afraid, because the nation of Israel is waking up. All right, and you need to be very afraid. Though they're not being violent, though they may peacefully protest, we can't allow them to ultimately rise up in any way, shape, or form. We have to keep them, all right, under our subjection. Okay, continuing further, this is happening at the same time when jurisdictions across the country, our police departments are actively acquiring surveillance tools in really secretive ways without any sort of oversight and regulation. Okay, and really that's going into how, these police departments, they have military grade equipment now. Some of them even have tanks. They have military grade vehicles. All right, so this was just one of the articles, and really through the spirit, the reason why, all right, this came about, and I wanted to do some more research and bring all these articles together, is because I saw this. All right, and it reminded me ultimately of this particular article and how not only the FBI, but of course all these law enforcement agencies, which really so-called law enforcement began as slave patrol. All right, and there are actually artifacts that still show the actual police badge literally said slave patrol on them, and you can look that up on your own time. All right, but this is a recent article just 2 days ago. The U.S. Postal Service, your local mailman, okay, is using its law enforcement arm. All right, and that's beautiful, because I didn't even know that the Postal Service had a so-called law enforcement section, if you will. Okay, of course, they probably work with other authorities, if you will, tracking packages and this, that, or another. But you have a whole law enforcement agency, within the Postal Service that is covertly tracking American social media posts and flags inflammatory messages to government agencies ahead of protest. And with protest, we are talking about Black Lives Matter protest. Okay, we are not talking about the Capitol Hill situation. Okay, we are not talking about KKK members who are widely and has been proven and exposed to be protected by their Edomite counterparts. All right, and what did we just read? All right, the FBI, what did they do? They have been working not only now, but for years, all right, with other organizations. All right, real quick, just to bring the point home. All right, they have been working, bringing together agents with officers from hundreds, all right, hundreds of state, local, federal law enforcement agencies. Okay, then say people, hundreds of different agencies, state agencies, local agencies, federal agencies. All right. And again, the Postal Service isn't even a so-called federal law enforcement agency. But now you are seeing how far these devils are watching. All right. You are seeing how far the devil is trying to stop prophecy. All right. And real quick, let me just see the main point. All right. Analysts are said to have looked through posts on Facebook, Parler, and Telegram flagging inflammatory messages to government agencies. All right. They also do reference to Proud Boys. But again, as with everything else, all right, the same way they use peaceful protest as a guise to say that, so-called black people were joining the Islamic State is the same way you have this. They're doing it under the pretext, oh, we're watching the Proud Boys, when in reality, they have been using this to track you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay, let me just get one or two more points real quick. Let me see. Here we go. So this individual that's part of this article, it doesn't really matter who he is, but if the individuals say they're monitoring and carrying out or planning criminal activity, that should be the purview of the FBI, right? And that's what we just read, all right? That is the FBI's so-called jurisdiction, all right? But as we just read, ultimately, we know that they have reached out to hundreds of state, local, and federal agencies to continue to keep their eyes privily set against you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay, and of course, being the devil, that the Bible speaks of, this is what they say. Okay, so this is their statement that the U.S. Postal Inspection Service is the primary law enforcement, crime prevention, and security arm of the U.S. Postal Service. As if apparently there's so much criminal activity that happens with the Postal Service, which is nonsense. All right. You still have Jakes and Edomites out there shipping drugs across the country. You still have all types of scams and checks and money being laundered by way of mail, stolen, credit card, all types of things. So, again, they try to use it under this guise, all right, of ultimately maintaining the laws and protecting the U.S. Postal Service and its employees, infrastructure, and customers to enforce the laws that defend the nation's mail system. All right. And again, from illegal or dangerous use, which is nonsense. Nobody cares about the Postal Service. All right. Continuing further, they added the Internet Covert Operations Program. All right. And why would it be the Internet Covert Operations Program? Okay. Why wouldn't it be, all right, the something related to the Postal Service? All right. There's nothing there in regards to that name alone. All right. Is a function within the U.S. Postal Inspection Service which assesses threats to Postal Service employees. All right. Now, first off, one, we know, just looking back, all right, nobody messes with a Postal Service employee. All right. And not once in the midst of all the looting, terrorist attacks, anything, has anybody attacked their so-called infrastructure. All right. Except for, if you brothers remember, some time back with that with the anthrax, when they were sending that through the mail, to certain politicians and stuff. That was the only time that the so-called postal service infrastructure was under attack. So again, you have the devil being the devil that he is, all right, speaking lies because he is the forger of lies. And you can clearly see that this is just a whole bunch of BS. All right. But nonetheless, all right, just a few more articles I wanted to show real quick. All right, that was the first one, and how I tied that into even the recent article, the Postal Service. All right, this is even one of those federal agencies that the FBI has reached out to. All right, and then real quick, this is, where's the other one? Salakia, bear with me. Here we go. This is just another article backing it up. In 2019, the FBI won't hand over its surveillance records on black identity extremists, so we're suing. And it doesn't really matter if you sue or not, because they can redact most of the information, like I made mention, to quote, save their sources, and they probably don't even have any sources. But you see how they use certain pretexts to continue their work as the wicked. All right. Here we go. This is just an example. All right. Back in the 1960s, that was just brought out in 2021 of this year. All right. And it reads: discredit, disrupt, and destroy FBI records acquired by the library. Reveal violent surveillance of black leaders, civil rights organizations. So if they were doing that back then, how much more do you think is happening now, since our elders and apostles, all right, and their elders and the high priest that preceded them began awakening to their true heritage and returning back to their true heritage? All right, so this just goes into how they were basically using different tactics, and again, it makes mention of quietly unleashing covert surveillance operations, all right, against these particular men that were known, all right, to basically fight for civil rights back in that time period. All right, and then just one more real quick. All right, I grabbed this already. This isn't new. No, not this one. Salakia, bear with me. Here we go. All right, this was in 2020. Activists sue San Francisco for wide-ranging surveillance of black-led protests against police violence. So here you have an example of how, as we previously saw in the article, the FBI has reached out to hundreds of state, local, and federal agencies. We see now how the post office is also involved under the pretext of making sure so-called the postman is safe, and never seen an instance of a postal worker anything happening to him. But nonetheless, another article here just showing you that, again, even at that state and local level, they have access to this wide-ranging surveillance, of course, because of the friendly agreement that they have made with the FBI and Esaus and this system, all right, ultimately trying to continue to keep us in oppression, okay? And again, like I made mention, all right, those CCTV cameras that you see out on the street and all of those things, even these local police departments are able to tap into a sprawling camera network by a business district to conduct live massive surveillance without first going through a legally required public process and obtaining permission from the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. Okay, and not only that, all right, this really started by way of Esaus, security agency, basically collecting all this data. All right, this is just an old article just to show you how the NSA could bug your powered off iPhone and how to stop them. All right, there's other articles real quick. If I just get a few. 2013, the NSA reportedly has total access to the Apple iPhone. All right, and this was based off of, Salakia, bear with me, this was based off of, as I made mention in a previous video on how Esaus and his technology, all right, like I said in the beginning of this video as well, he has the technology to hack into any electronic device, all right, anything that is connected to his system, all right, being that which was given through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, the unicorn, the internet. He has access to it. All right. And then real quick, just the other article that inspired me to do this video and kind of connect all the dots once again, aside from the Postal Service going all throughout social media. And again, that shows, as we always say, those agents, their literal job is to go on social media and watch and create fake accounts and all of that. And, again, so we have those instances, and then we have instances of other leadership and other camps and how they have made fake pages to do that, so, it's really showing the wickedness that has increased not only under Esau Edom, but also within the nation of Israel, and why 2/3 must be destroyed, and why only he has allowed and ordained for the remnant to receive it. Okay. Just the last article real quick before I get some scriptures in closing. The Department of Homeland Security is looking at tracking travel of who? Domestic extremists. All right. And again, who are those domestic extremists? All right. That is not the Capitol riot, though they might use that as a pretext. All right. This is all aimed at you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. All right. So the department could begin analyzing the travel patterns of suspected, again, just like we read in the article before about so-called black identity extremists. There's no reference as to why. They just say, be very afraid and blah, blah, blah. So the same thing as you're saying here, man, suspected. Oh, well, no, be afraid and do this and do that. Again, that is because, all right, ultimately, it is aimed at the nation of Israel. All right. And, Esau, man, he's just a damn devil. And to prove that, all right, in this article, in this very same paragraph, they even say it. All right. There have also been discussions about putting suspected domestic violent extremists, a category that includes white supremacists. So clearly, this wasn't who it was based off. All right. Again, this is going back to, that so-called black identity extremism. This is going to us Israelites, the prophets. All right. It says that this category of domestic violent extremists, it includes white supremacists. So clearly, that's not their main focus. All right. So basically, these devils are going to implement a no-fly list. All right. These devils are about to come down with great wrath. All right. They are going to be trying to set people up and do false flags. And they are going to go back to how it was, picking people up off the streets and you never see them again, if you will. All right. So, through the Spirit, I just wanted to bring those articles out, man, just to expose this damn devil, all right, for who he is, all right, which we know him to be, just the wicked that the Bible speaks of. And then not only that, all right, really, the point being that even though he's doing all this, is going to fall upon his head. All right. And it's all going to come to naught. All right. Whether he uses the goddamn Postal Service, whether they want to try to track travel. All right. It doesn't really matter. OK, so I got two scriptures, one chapter right here. All right. And also 2nd Ezra chapter 9. All right. Because we are entering the time that our soul faith and trust and hope, as it should be even now, is in trusting that Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai Bahashem Rachach Chodash, all right, will deliver, guide, give us the wisdom to endure. All right. So in closing, I'm going to grab these scriptures. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 121, starting at verse 1. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, is thy keeper. The Lord, Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai, is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord, Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai, shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord, Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai, shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. All right. And you could kind of liken in this last captivity, our going out, all right, being born, all right, into this sinful world, all right, you know, being placed right out into this wicked ass society, learning, understanding, all right, being renewed, all right, repenting, and then coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Coming into what? Coming into the kingdom, all right, going out of wickedness and coming into the kingdom, all right. And even though Esau is doing all of these things, all right, again, it doesn't matter, okay, because the point is going to be brought out right here, all right. It is Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai, all right, that will deliver us, all right. Second Esdras chapter 9 verse 6, and the point being verse 8. Even so, the times also of the highest have plain beginnings in wonder and powerful works, and endings in effects and signs. And we're going to see a lot of things happen and occur in this particular ending, all right, being the ending of Esau, Edom, and this kingdom, all right, and being the beginning of the kingdom of Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai. Verse 7, and everyone that shall be saved and shall be able to escape by his works and by faith. All right, so that's how we're going to be able to escape. All right, because we had our hand to the plow. All right, we cared about the sheep. All right, but ultimately the only reason why we were able to do that was because we were given that fear, that wisdom, knowledge, understanding, that oil, and Adawan Radazah. We were predestinated as part of that elect, okay? Whereby ye have believed shall be preserved. We are going to be preserved, brothers, all right? It don't matter what technology Esau has, all right? It don't matter how many photos of your whole family that he has. It don't matter what he has on you, all right? A sniper dot right on your head, all right? That doesn't matter, all right? Because it is Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai that will preserve us, all right? Second Esdras chapter 9 verse 8, in closing, shall be preserved from the said perils, and shall see my salvation in my land and within my borders, for I have sanctified them for me from the beginning. All right, so even though we see Esau, being in that spirit of trying to, keep us for him, all right, ultimately, Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai will prevail, all right, because he is the true power, all right. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out, all right. Adawan Radazah, y'all was edified, all right. And in closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai Ba'Hashem Recha HaKodash. Double honors to our elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who do teach and rule well, and through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai taught us this 100% truth. Peace, love, and salutations to the house of David, the hopeful elect. You Akim out there pushing this word in truth and sincerity. To those of you likened unto the speckled bird and scattered to the four corners, speaking in different tongues, unto you, and until next time we say Shalom.